a new table. That evening, I arrived at Lawn, a quiet, elegant restaurant far from the corporate district. The soft jazz, polished wood, and dim lighting made it ideal for discreet conversation. "Over here," called a familiar voice. I smiled as I slid into the booth opposite Jonathan Pierce, CEO of Silverrest Capital, Dalton and Brooks' fiercest competitor, and someone I had maintained a quiet, professional rapport with for years. "They finally did it, huh?" he said, pouring me a glass of wine. "They did," I replied, "exactly as we expected." He nodded. Kevin's arrogance was always going to be his downfall. And Amanda? I knew the second she stepped into Victor's shoes, she'd make this move. Victor, the previous CEO, had his flaws, but he'd always valued my contributions. His sudden retirement 6 months ago had marked the beginning of Amanda's rise and my slow, calculated marginalization. I didn't want to believe they'd go through with it, I admitted. But once I found that email thread, I knew there was no saving it. Jonathan leaned in. "We've had our legal team comb through everything. You're in the clear. The improvements you made to their client portfolio system, done off the clock, on your own equipment, it's all verifiable." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. They underestimated me. "They always do," Jonathan said, grinning. "They see age and assume complacency. What they don't see is someone who's been quietly building something better." I slid a folder across the table. Inside were updated algorithms, performance reports, and a preliminary patent application, all under my name. I had spent the last year refining Dalton and Brooks's most valuable software, but every enhancement had been made on my own time. Jonathan scanned the documents. "You've outdone yourself. Silverrest will be ahead of them within a quarter." "That's only part of it," I said. "I also have the loyalty of my team. They've seen how I've been treated. They won't stay much longer." Jonathan raised a brow. "You're offering us not just the system, but the people who know it inside and out." "They're good people," I said simply. "They deserve better." "When can you start?" he asked. "I'll take the weekend to regroup," I said, feeling the weight of 15 years finally begin to lift. "But I'm ready, and so are they." Jonathan grinned. "Perfect. Monday, we announce your appointment as Silverrest's new Director of Strategic Innovation. We'll position it carefully, but the message will be clear." I could already picture Amanda's face when the news broke. "One more thing," I added. "I've prepared transition documents, procedures, passwords, project outlines, everything. It'll look like I'm being gracious. But without me, and without my team, they'll be lost." Jonathan chuckled. "Poetic." "Strategic," I corrected. "I don't want revenge. I want recognition, and I want my people protected." We clinked glasses. The plan was in motion. The last goodbye Monday arrived. The office felt unchanged. Same printer hums, same hallway chatter. But beneath it all was a current of tension. Everyone had heard. Sympathetic smiles greeted me as I walked past. Emma lingered by the break room but didn't speak. In my office, my half-packed box waited. Framed photos, awards, conference trinkets, 15 years distilled. No one from the executive team came by. Not Kevin, not Amanda, not even Richard. So much for respect. One by one, my team came by pretending to ask questions. But really, they were saying goodbye. Miguel, my most trusted developer, closed the door behind him. "Is it true? You're just leaving?" "Not exactly," I said, standing. "Check your personal email tonight. Trust me." He hesitated, then nodded. "We'll miss you. All of us." "That's their problem now," I said with a wink. Later, Richard arrived for the exit interview, clipboard in hand, reciting policies like a bored actor. He slid an NDA toward me. "You understand all work created during employment belongs to Dalton and Brooks," I signed. "Of course." Anything created during employment with company resources belongs to Dalton and Brooks. He didn't catch the nuance, too busy checking boxes. And you affirm you've taken nothing proprietary? I've taken nothing that belongs to the company, I replied truthfully. With that, it was over. As I taped up my box, Kevin appeared, leaning in the doorway. Leaving so soon? He asked, smug. You had a good run, Kathy. This place needs fresh blood. No hard feelings. None at all, I said with a smile. Maybe take up gardening, he smirked. Oh, I'm not retiring, I said, softly. I've already lined something up. Starts Monday. He blinked. Oh? A leadership role, I added, stepping past him. Something I'm quite excited about. I didn't wait for a reply. I walked straight out of the building, box in hand, head high. A new dawn. Monday morning, I woke early. No commute, no stress, just sunrise, coffee, and silence. By 8 a.m., the news broke. I refreshed Silverrest Capital's website. Silverrest Capital announces Kathy Bennett as Director of Strategic Innovation Exclusive Rights Secured for Revolutionary Client Portfolio System. It wasn't just a new title, it was a public claim. Amanda, Kevin, and the rest thought Friday marked the end of my story. They were wrong. Monday was just the beginning. The Bennett coup, the very system Dalton and Brooks depended on, now had a new home. The press release detailed everything, how I had developed the updated portfolio system independently, outside company time and resources. It outlined Silverrest Capital's immediate plans to roll out the technology, leapfrogging the competition. I knew Amanda, Kevin, and Richard were reading the same press release in real time. Moments later, my phone buzzed. 9:12 a.m. Emma. Kathy, what is going on? There's chaos here. I smiled to myself. 9:17 a.m. Miguel. They just called. An emergency exec meeting. Amanda looks like she's seen a ghost. I replied simply, check your personal email. Over the weekend, I had sent private offers to every member of my old team. Developers, analysts, coordinators, the ones who had stood by me, undervalued and overlooked. Silverrest had created senior roles for each of them, with better pay, better benefits, and most importantly, real recognition. By 10 a.m., the news had exploded across the financial sector. Industry blogs were calling it the Bennett coup. LinkedIn buzzed. Dalton and Brooks's clients were panicking. So was Dalton and Brooks. 10:30 a.m. Amanda called. I answered calmly. Hello, Amanda. Kathy, she said, tight-voiced, there's been a misunderstanding. We need to discuss the intellectual property you took with you. I couldn't help but chuckle. Amanda, I took nothing that belongs to Dalton and Brooks. What I developed on my own time, with my own resources, is mine. You'll find it clearly spelled out in Section 14 of the Employment Agreement. She paused. Let's be reasonable. We're willing to negotiate. Can you come in this afternoon to talk? Oh, Amanda, I said sweetly. I'm booked solid this week, but I'm sure our legal teams will have plenty to discuss. I ended the call before she could respond. 10:45 a.m. Miguel. It's pandemonium. Kevin's screaming at IT. Amanda's locked in her office. Everyone's asking if they should start job hunting. I replied, they won't have to look far. By noon, nearly everyone from my old team had accepted the Silverrest offers. Even Emma, hesitant before, emailed me. If you'll have me, I'd be honored. Silverrest's legal team was already fielding licensing inquiries from Dalton and Brooks' biggest clients. They could either pay a premium to license the system or rebuild from scratch, a task that would take years and cost millions. By lunchtime, Dalton and Brooks' stock had dropped 6%. Investors don't like uncertainty, and this was its very definition. Meanwhile, Silverrest shares were climbing. Then came Kevin. Kathy, he said, voice forced into civility. Listen, maybe we were hasty. Maybe there's still a role for you. I almost laughed. Kevin, I'm flattered, but I think you're about to be very busy. You can't do this, you're burning bridges. No, I said softly. I'm just walking across one you didn't even see me building. Tuesday morning. The cracks were now chasms. Blogs dissected every detail. Analysts speculated about Dalton and Brooks' future. Clients whispered about shifting to Silverrest. I sat in Silverrest's glass conference room, surrounded by sunlight, my new colleagues, and my old team. Miguel looked more energized than I'd seen him in years. You really pulled it off, he said. Believe it, I replied. Jonathan entered. The fallout is worse than we thought. 3 major clients have already contacted us. I nodded. They relied heavily on the system. They're jumping ship. By mid-morning, a message from David, still inside D&B. Emergency board meeting. Kevin's pacing like a caged animal. Amanda hasn't spoken since Monday. Richard looks like he aged 10 years. I forwarded it to Jonathan. He chuckled. Almost feel sorry for them. Almost, I replied. That afternoon, I met with Denise Den, a senior client I'd worked with for a decade. Amanda's team doesn't know how to manage your system, she said. Frankly, we don't trust them anymore. We'd love to keep working with you through Silverrest, I said. Denise smiled. I'll make it happen. Jonathan greeted me back at Silverrest with a stack of reports. More clients lining up. D&B is hemorrhaging. At 3 p.m., another text from David. Kevin's blaming Amanda. Amanda's blaming Richard. The board is furious. Rumors of leadership changes. I replied. Expected. Wednesday, D&B's stock dropped 15%. Employees reached out privately, asking if Silverrest was hiring. But the real moment came at 11 by Amadi, a call to Silverrest's legal team from D&B's general counsel and 2 senior executives. They want a formal meeting, Jonathan told me. They know they're cornered. They want licensing, I said, and they'll want it cheap and quiet. But that's not what they'll get. Silverrest's legal team was ready. Expensive, non-negotiable. Licensing fees, retroactive and ongoing, and a public acknowledgement of my authorship. That evening, Miguel popped in with his phone. You see the news? Breaking, Dalton and Brooks announces executive shakeup. CEO Amanda Price and head of product. Kevin Rhodes, step down effective immediately. I took a long breath. How does it feel? Miguel asked. Like justice, I said. 2 weeks later, I stood in Silverrest's main conference room as final signatures were inked. The licensing deal was official. Dalton and Brooks had accepted every term. They would pay in full going forward and back. More importantly, they had published a statement across all channels. Dalton and Brooks formally recognizes Kathy Bennett as the sole inventor of the portfolio management system developed during her tenure and is grateful for her contributions to the industry. Grateful. The irony wasn't lost on me. Silverrest was thriving. The enhanced system, refined after my departure, was surpassing every projection. My team was thriving. Emma now led key development teams. Miguel coached new hires. Everyone had found their place. Emma walked in with Miguel, tablet in hand. You'll want to see this. Dalton and Brooks faces investor revolt over patent oversight and talent exodus. The vultures are circling, Emma said. They'll survive, I replied, but not without learning a hard lesson. After a meeting, I received an unexpected call. Denise, from D&B Legal. Kathy, she began. On behalf of what remains of leadership, I want to personally apologize. Many of us disagreed with how you were treated. I appreciate it, I replied evenly. But I've moved on, and so has my team. She hesitated. If there's ever a chance to collaborate again in the future, I think Dalton and Brooks has some rebuilding to do first. We ended the call politely. The message was clear. They had burned a bridge they now desperately wished they hadn't. Later that evening, I strolled through the Silver Rest offices. People listened when I spoke. My age wasn't a liability. It was proof of experience. By the dev wing, I saw Emma confidently walking a group through a complex system. Miguel nearby, nodding in quiet approval. Jonathan found me later watching the skyline. "You changed things," he said. "Maybe," I said, "but it shouldn't have taken this much. People in the industry are talking about it. About you." "Let them," I replied. As the sun set, casting gold over the city, I allowed myself a rare moment of peace. Not revenge, satisfaction. For myself, and for every underestimated worker ever told they were too old, too quiet, too loyal. I hadn't just proved Amanda and Kevin wrong. I reminded an entire industry what real power looks like.